What if you can buy food for your family for 2.5 months?
That's exactly what happened to our friend Andre when war broke out in the Ukraine. Stores were bombed, supplies were interrupted, and it was 2.5 months before they had access to any food outside of what they had stored.
But we can make sure that doesn't happen to our families. Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene, and today we are going to talk about building your 3-month supply of food, which is critically important for everyone to have that basic food in their house so that no matter what happens, you can feed your family. It was really interesting in our interview with Andre from the Ukraine. When the war broke out, for 2.5 months, they could not get any food from the stores because they were bombed and different things happened. In fact, that interview is fantastic. If you click the card in the corner, it will take you to that interview, and it is definitely worth the watch. But it just reinforced to us how important that short-term food supply is. And it could be for any reason, right? You could have short paychecks or a job loss or all kinds of different things, but that food is important. So one of the methods to build your short-term food supply that we thought was really interesting is it's in the bag. This book is by Michelle and Trent Snow. It's a super fun idea.
It is, because everything you need is all in one place. And for those of us that aren't skilled in cooking, the recipe is right on the bag here, and the ingredient list. So very simple for me. Even if I use this, then I know exactly what I need to fill it back up with, and I have the recipe right there at hand.
So that pretty much anybody can cook. If you can read a recipe, you should be able to cook with what is in this bag. These are just little self-adhesive 3x5 little inserts that we stuck on here to put the recipe cards in. We'll talk about what's in it in a minute, but when it comes to storing the bags, I thought this was really interesting. This is a picture of Michelle and Trent's storeroom where all these bags are stored.
And in this case, they have 422 bags, which is probably more than most people would have, but they have the room on those shelves and they have those bags all set to go.
And you might want 2 a day. You might want one for breakfast and one for dinner, depending on how you set things up. Personally, we would probably not do one for breakfast because we eat so much granola. We have these just basic things that we do, so it wouldn't make sense to put them in the bag because we're boring people. But with dinner, it gets so much more exciting. So let me show you what's in some of these bags. Let's do the Hawaiian haystack one. First, I have all on this recipe, I have all of the ingredients that I need to make the gravy. Now you could just buy a gravy mix and put in here if that's the way that you eat, but I can't do gluten. And so I like to do everything from scratch. And this is from a mix that we make that's a gluten-free cream of soup substitute. In fact, click the card in the corner and it'll take you to a video where Sam shows how to make this. This is a really, really a good mix. Everything for the gravy is right here. So all you need to do is boil your water, dump this in, whisk it in, and then you would add your chicken, canned chicken. But before you start anything in this recipe, you would start your rice. Let's talk a little bit about my rice. Michelle recommends that you use little Ziploc bags and you measure it out and you put it in here. Well, I already had this one packaged for long-term storage, so I need to use this up and rotate it, so I just put it in this bag. Then we have the different toppings. These are freeze-dried peas. Now, we have a freeze dryer and I freeze dry a lot of food and we use that food because we grow this huge garden and that's just how we eat. But you could buy canned peas or you don't have to have peas, or you could buy them already freeze-dried. Olives, you have to have olives. I know my olive haters out there are gonna say no, but that's one of our favorite toppings. I've got slivered almonds, mandarin oranges, pineapple, and of course the Chinese noodles. Those are the kind of toppings that we would normally have on it. Everything's in the bag. I don't have to worry about that I'm out of anything or forget anything. And then one of the things that Michelle and Trent recommend is that you have some kind of a fruit in the bag for your dessert. These are freeze-dried apples that are actually from our tree, and they are fabulous.
Quite tasty.
In some of these bags, I have different dried fruit, or like in this one, I have bottled fruit that we we've bottled because we want to use the food that we normally have. You can do this any way that you want. We made shrimp scampi, the Hawaiian haystacks. I did a poppy seed pasta salad, super yummy.
Spaghetti.
Goulash.
Goulash. And my chili. Yeah. Yes, my chili. I can't live without my chili.
And his chili, it's a bit different because most of these bags you could make in 30 minutes or less. But his chili actually has the dry beans in it. And so we use the Instant Pot, so you can get away with making it in a couple of hours, but it is going to take longer. But it's also a very inexpensive way to go. And that's another thing about these bags. You can make them with as expensive of ingredients as you want, or you can make it very, very inexpensive. You just have to really think it through, think what your family likes and what your family's preferences are. If you don't like dry beans, don't make bags that have dried beans in them. Only make the recipes that your family uses all the time. This will also help with rotation. Think about this, because sometimes you've got those cans that are stuck in the back of the pantry and they stay there for a really long time. This way, you're just using all of your ingredients on a regular basis, simplifying your life. Now, one of the things that I did find a bit challenging was that some ingredients in my normal recipes aren't shelf stable. Everything in these bags are shelf stable. So you can solve that, like with the lemon. We do a lot of recipes like Indian food where you add, or the shrimp scampi, where you're adding the lemon at the end. So these are little packets of lemon and lime that are shelf stable that you can use. Parmesan cheese, you could get the bigger bottles, but then you've got the big bottle and you're not going to use that in one meal. So we bought some of the little packets that you can use in here. We're counting on the fact that in your pantry, you're going to have like oil and vinegar and honey, some of those things that you just can't have small enough containers and make it economical to put in the bag. It just doesn't make sense to do that. Michelle and Trent actually have water bottles in here so that they have the water that they would need to make the meal also. We store water in big tanks, and so I'm not really afraid that I would ever be without the water. So we didn't put the bottles in here. Anything else you can think of? This was a lot of fun.
It is. It's a fun way to do it. And it's, of course, not the only way to do it. Figure out what works for you. But the critical thing is that you get it done.
This method just happens to be simple, organized, easy to keep everything rotated, and actually very empowering to know that I have everything I need to eat well, no matter what happens. And now for the question of the day. What meal would you put in your very first dinner bag? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution. Now get storing food. Make sure you have food stored, please, 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 please.